It's time to do a final Friday business for this week. This is Business Incorporated. We have 25 minutes to give you updates from what has been happening in the world of business. And here is what we have prepared for you. In Zimbabwe, they are planning to stop the usage of American dollar, but the IMF is asking for clarification. Business confidence is growing in South Africa. It's also good news in Kenya. The private sector economy has recovered. You're welcome to the program. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from the oil space as usual. Prices were stable on Friday, but remained on course for a weekly loss of about 7 to 8% after the news of potential increases in OPEC Plus supply. We know that's been driving the market like all through the week. Look at the numbers for this afternoon. In the morning, we had more than 1% in the grain, but it reduced a bit, talking about the grain color. So it's 0.42% in the grain at $64.38. WTI is also up 0.48%, $60.77 per barrel. 8 members of OPEC Plus could agree to raise production in November by between 247,000 and 411,000 barrels per day, or 2 or 3 times, that's 2 or 3 times higher than the increase in October. We move to the metal space now. Gold prices held steady on Friday, but it's really had a very large gap movement in this week, poised for a 7th consecutive weekly rise as expectation further U.S. interest rate cuts and concerns over the economic impact of a prolonged government shutdown. I think it's day 2 now in the United States since government has shut down. We see spot gold is up slightly, 0.03%, retaining the 3,800 level. Also, U.S. gold still retaining that, in fact, getting really close to what looks like a 3,900, again 0.32%. Spot silver, 2.25% in the green, $47.41. Platinum is also gold. So all fears from the cuts, possible cuts or not, but mostly from the U.S. government shutdown, sends investors to hedge with metals. That's why we see these very green colors at 1.65% for platinum, at $1,612.20. Palladium is even more than 2% in the green. So investors looking for safe haven at a time when there's a high level of uncertainty in the United States. We move to Zimbabwe, where the International Monetary Fund says that Zimbabwe must provide more clarity on the implications of its plan to phase out domestic use of the US dollar by 2030, pointing out that the local currency, the ZiG, hasn't yet found wide acceptance. Among unanswered questions, whether the use of ZiG will be limited to domestic transactions, allowing bank deposits denominated in dollars, and the Washington-based lender says that following its annual evaluation of the country's economy, some unanswered questions right there. We go to Kenya, where the private sector economy showed signs of recovery in September, with the Stanbic Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index, that's the PMI, rising to 51.9 from 49.4 in August. And this marks the first time the index has moved above the 50-point neutral mark since April, signaling an improvement in business conditions after months affected by political protests and rising prices. The recovery was driven solidly by solid expansion in output, new orders and employment. Approximately 33% of surveyed firms reported growth in output during September. That's compared to 23% that experienced decline. And many businesses benefited from effective marketing and investment in products and services, although the construction industry continues to face sharp output declines. Now we move to South Africa, where that country, South Africa, has invited Nigeria to host a G20 event in its capital, Abuja. The invitation was extended by the South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, to his Nigerian counterpart. He says that it's part of preparations for the G20 Leaders Summit that's scheduled for November in Johannesburg. And he shared more details, which I'm sure our Foreign Affairs program on Channel CV will give you subsequently today. We're still in South Africa, where business conditions in that country's private sector has improved for the 5th month running, buoyed by a rise in outputs and new orders. And S&P Global reported this today. The Purchasing Managers Index, that's the PMI, edged up to 50.2% in September from 50.1 in August, indicating a mild improvement in the sector's health. PMI readings above 50 generally signal good growth, signal growth, while those below indicate contraction. The uptick in activity was underpinned by a sustained easing of cost pressures, with input prices rising at their slowest rate in nearly a year. Only 3% of surveyed firms reported a month-on-month increase in costs, aided by favorable exchange rate against the US dollar and lower head count. Some good news for Zimbabwe, as they recorded a significant rise in tourist arrivals for the second quarter of this year, a strong indication of the country's growing appeal as a competitive destination in the region. According to the latest official statistics that ZimStats released today, they said a total of 471,041 tourist arrivals were recorded countrywide during the second quarter, compared to 381,293 in the same period last year. The statistics further show that the sector is on a firm recovery path after years of global disruptions, with Zimbabwe registering strong quarter-on-quarter performance. So some hope for them there while they're trying to find their feet, discarding the use of the US dollar in the domestic economy. And then we go to Ethiopia, where China's Golden Concord Group, the GCL, has signed an agreement with Ethiopia to build a $2.5 billion oil refinery in the country's Somali region. As part of efforts to cut petroleum imports and drive industrialization, the site will be co-developed by GCL and a sovereign wealth fund, Ethiopian Investment Holdings. The Prime Minister says launched the Gold Project, that was called the Gold Project, laying the foundation stone for both the refinery and a new urea fertilizer project. If realized, gold would add to a wave of downstream investments across Africa in recent years. And the facility is intended to process around 3.5 million tons of fuel annually. That's about 70,000 barrels per day. No commissioning date has, however, been announced, but the first of the two construction phases should be completed within 24 months, according to the minister. Now, here in Nigeria, Nigerian-born billionaire investor and founder of Global Infrastructure Partners, Mr. Adebayo Ogunlesi, has hinted the possibility of investment in Nigeria's ports and aviation sectors. He visited President Bola Tinubu recently at Abuja, and the 71-year-old worth $2.6 billion investor made this known after speaking with the President Bola Tinubu. Sits on the board of Goldman Sachs, and whose GIP manages over $100 billion in global assets. He revealed that his group is already exploring fresh investment opportunities in Nigeria. All right, so now let's do a bit of a studio discussion now, talking about attracting investments. Digital finance seems to be at the top of it. Now, let's talk about this a bit, and we have joining us right here someone who's good with marketing and could tell us how to do that. Ebonluwa Adetaiwo. Ebonluwa Adetaiwo is a senior product marketing manager and joins us. Hi, Ebon. It's, yeah, good to see you. So we're talking of investment there. Okay. The big names, of course, like Mr. Ogunlesi right there. But even at the mini businesses, it's always important to talk about how to brand your business, make it attractive for investors, and digital finance is the talk of the day now. I mean, we're discussing a lot of physical stuff. From your experience and conversations, when you look at the continent of Africa, how much penetration would you say digital finance has made?
So when you look around, money is always a top of mind when it comes to, lifestyle. You're going to school, you want to start a business, you want to start a family, you want to travel. Money is always at the top of the discussion. And using money, you need some tools, right? These days, we have, certain lifestyles, like traveling, you want to pay for stuff where digital technology has to come into place. For instance, you want to make a purchase of a product from another country in Nigeria. You cannot send cash physically. You need an infrastructure that would help you, give value to the merchant or whoever is sending you the product, and then they send you back the product after you have made payments. So the penetration is deep. We just still have some, issues here and there.
Issues of infrastructure, I guess.
Infrastructure, regulations.
Trust.
And trust.
and trust is not easy to build.
Absolutely.
And with money, you need trust.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, again, as a Nigerian, it's hard to come by money these days. And I need to trust you as a business building a financial solution to give you all of this money, to say, keep for me, I'm coming back later to have it. With traditional banks, you could just walk into any branch, you could talk to the account manager, you could say, oh, I need to see the manager of this bank, something is wrong. But with, digital finance these days, everything is done virtually. So trust goes a long way.
So what one day you open your app and then it doesn't come on, then what do you do? I've had people ask me that question.
So, again, as a Nigerian, there's a word I came by recently, scamometer.
Oh my God, I don't think I've heard that before.
So it's the SI unit for how you feel when one day you wake up, you say, oh, this savings app or this crypto app that I even have my money in, let me see what's going on with my money. And then you open the app, it's glitching. And like, okay, maybe it's network. Then you go on Twitter, people complaining about the same thing, alarms start ringing in your head, which is why it is important that for that trust to happen, it's not a vague concept. Every touch point, you have to show trust. Your comment section, show that you are listening to your customers. If there's a downtime can be expected sometimes. So there's a way you're communicating to your users, to your customers to say, oh, this thing is going on. Don't let people come to complain about it first before you address it.
So, you mentioned crypto there, but that seems to be only for the Gen Zs and, all the youthful people. Because when you mention crypto, some people just see scam everywhere. All they see is just scam. How do we even need to win the trust of Africans, on the crypto blockchain? Do we need to? Is there a necessity?
If we keep pushing the narrative of, oh, crypto is scam, the world is going to leave us behind because the rest of the world is moving fast. And the concern about scam is valid because you hear stories of people, money laundering, frauds, trying to clean money, and they're looking for, different ways. However, people who are building crypto products, there are exchanges in Nigeria and other parts of Africa who are in talks with, regulatory bodies who build products that are transparent. The founders, their businesses where they're incorporated, their people, where to find them basically. So trust is not hard to build when you put in place the right measures, like getting regulated by the Security Exchange Commissions in Nigeria, for example. They recognize you are answerable to them. So in Africa, in Nigeria especially, crypto might be seen as scam to most people, but we are making strides every day to...
Yeah, because even the authorities are beginning to recognize virtual assets have now been captured by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So, but I wonder how many people really follow the story or follow news to that level. So it might take a while for that to penetrate. So
again, we are still talking about trust, right? We don't really need to rely on traditional news outlets. You mentioned earlier the Gen Zs, the future. Speak their language. Where can you meet them?
No, but do the Gen Zs have a problem of trust? Or it's the traditional mindset?
So it's a bit of a conundrum. It's dicey. It goes both ways, right? You know, these days how the Gen Zs complain of how, you know, back in the day where parents did little to get more, but these days you have to like keep 5 jobs to be able to survive. So now if I don't have 5 jobs, but if I had 5 jobs, multiple streams of income, I still need somewhere to keep all of that money, right? And I need to trust these people, you know, to be able to keep my data safe, to be able to keep my money safe. And that is where the issue of trust building comes in.
But would you say we're on a path of intentionally building this trust?
Absolutely.
As the Nigerian government, as the Nigerian people, as people like you who are already in the sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So recently, there are top Nigerian exchanges who have gotten provisional license from the SEC. There are people who are also recognized by the CBN. So all of these discussions are in place. There are events, you know, closed doors, roundtable events with these bodies where we have discussions on how to move the industry forward, especially when it comes to digital assets and how, you know, people can actually rely on these custodians to keep the money of Nigerians safe. So this is where regulatory bodies are, you know, coming. This is where they come in, and this is where they are important.
All right. Thank you so much, Ebonluwa. Adetai was Senior Product Marketing, and we hope you keep out the message and to win more trust into the digital finance space. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, now let's look at other stories. We're heading to the markets now to see what's going on at intraday, starting, of course, from Nigeria. If we could have the market numbers, there you have it. So we're still retaining the 143,000 level. Intraday, we've had a bit of gain, 0.05%. Perhaps by now it should be more. But we see recovery also with Johannesburg in South Africa. It's now 109,000. They've been moving, South Africa. We've seen some positive move in the last couple of days trading sessions. So for intraday, they are more than 1% in the green. Look at Egypt. Egypt is, however, closed on Fridays, but they closed green. 36,900 and Nairobi is also closed. It's not closed, but this is their Thursday data. They closed positive, also 178.96. Moving over to the Middle East, where only 2 of the markets are open on Friday. So Dubai is red, Abu Dhabi is on the flip side, 0.10% in the green, 10,074.94. The other 2 markets do not trade on Fridays, but we can see their Thursday close. The Tadawul and Qatar, they closed in the red at the close of trade yesterday. Moving over now to the United States, see what the market number looks like this afternoon. So it's green. The government shutdown is still on, and we saw how gold and most of those metals are soaring because investors are just so uncertain about what might happen next or when the shutdown could end. We still hear President Donald Trump, you know, blowing really hot, even after 2 days after the shutdown. But the Dow is, the features looking good, green before trade, as well as the S&P and the NASDAQ. They are looking green at this time. We'll go over to Europe now, find out what's happening with investors there with Chiponda Chimbelu. Hey, Chip, good afternoon. What are investors doing intraday? Oh, yeah, no, I think we'll go straight to the conversations where flights in and out of Munich International Airport, that's Germany's second biggest, were disrupted on Thursday evening because of drone sightings. That obviously took a lot of attention, all of that. So Chip has the details on this and a whole lot more. Hey, Chip, what's going on?
Thanks for having me. Well, Munich International Airport reopened in the morning, actually. That was after halting operations on Thursday evening. Now, the airport released a statement earlier today saying that drone sightings on Thursday evening had forced air traffic operations to halt flights, and that led to the cancellation of 17 flights and disrupted travel for nearly 3,000 passengers. Now, Munich Airport is Germany's second biggest hub for international travel after Frankfurt International. And more than a dozen flights that were scheduled to arrive at the airport were diverted to other cities, including Frankfurt and Vienna in Austria. Now, the timing couldn't have been worse. Munich is hosting its world-famous beer festival, Oktoberfest, which ends on Sunday. But the disruption is, of course, also a major concern because we have seen similar incidents at other European airports recently. For instance, Denmark and Norway also shut their airports at the beginning of last week because of drone sightings.
Yeah, that's worrying there. The disruptions, how serious is this security threat from what you've heard?
Last week, the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen had said that she could not rule out that Russia was behind the drone sightings that led to the closure of Copenhagen Airport. But there is no evidence that Moscow was behind that incident, and Denmark now says it was the work of a professional actor. Still, there are fears that Russia could be waging a hybrid war against Europe, and that could include hiring mercenary agents for attacks. Now, here in Germany, the government said that critical infrastructure is under threat daily. Now, during the week that drones were spotted at many European airports, there was also a cyber attack on security software that caused severe delays at many of the continent's airports, including the international airport here in Berlin. And in September, the German Domestic Intelligence Service, the BND, said that cyber attacks on government institutions and critical infrastructure are happening almost every day.
All right, so I mean, this is really worrying, Chip, but does it look like Germany and other European countries are ready to handle this security threat?
Probably not. At least that's what we hear some security experts saying. And there are, of course, questions about whether Germany can deal with all the attacks because it lags behind when it comes to digital infrastructure. Now, for instance, while Germany's army does have IT experts, its tanks do run on software from 1989. And that is just one example of how weakly protected the country could be against sophisticated cyber attacks. And that's according to one security expert that DW spoke with. Now, apart from the inconvenience and panic that these attacks cause, these disruptions are, of course, also very expensive. Cyber attacks, which are increasing, have cost the economy 289 billion euros this year alone, and that's according to Bitkom, which represents companies in the digital economy in Germany. And the country is, of course, facing threats on multiple fronts. So it's not just Moscow. Fingers have also been pointed at actors in Beijing and, of course, also left-wing extremists.
Yeah, this is a worrying situation, Chip, and well, we hope that investigations will reveal those behind this drone and to be sorted. Thank you so much and have a great weekend. All right, now let's see what the crypto numbers look like now. For 2 days, we've seen a surge with in the price of Bitcoin, and that seems to continue because today we see the price has hit 120,356.442. And so in the last 24 hours, we've seen an almost 1% increase when it comes to Bitcoin price. Ethereum is still proudly retaining the $4,000 level. It's getting to 4,500. It's gained almost 2% in 24 hours. BNB, Solana, TRX, and XRP, and all of that. And so talking about the price of Bitcoin and where it might be heading, we have the Cardano founder. He has argued that Bitcoin will rally to $250,000 by 2026, and this is the primary reason why it could reach that price is making headlines again for this new timeline for Bitcoin. That's the Cardano owner. It says the $250,000 is what he's saying, and that the pioneering currency will grow to 250,000. He said it to be a new all-time high for BTC, which is now at 120. So you can imagine, calculate the difference if you have one Bitcoin. If you have one Bitcoin, and then it's 120 now, and then by next year, July 2026 is what is projecting that it would have hit 250,000. That'll make somebody very rich, isn't it? Well, that's if his prediction is correct. But anyways, let's see if it will work out that way. If not, maybe you have a slice of it, or you can also do Ethereum, which is also looking good at this time. Well, that's it on Business Incorporated for today and for the week. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey that we've had this week. We hope to start again on Monday and to bring you all the information that you need on your money and your economy. I'm Ini John Meko. I'll see you tonight, though, for the stock market report, and hopefully it will be a great market. Bye-bye.